Greetings everyone. So if you've been following the news recently, you may have seen Cocaine Gate, where allegedly the French president, British Prime Minister and German Chancellor were doing a bit of drugs on the train from Poland to Ukraine.
It's through my bathroom, huh?
Yeah?
It's literally. We came through Germany,
Yeah.
and then we made it to
The
France.
German bedroom and
Yeah,
the
we got
bathroom.
through the border.
Right.
Make a photo and after that you will be allowed to have a drink.
Yeah.
Super.
Yeah.
Tout le monde va bien? Ok, c'est bon. Merci. Merci.
Merci.
So if you missed that moment, let me play that part to you once again. You can see French President Emmanuel Macron as they all go to sit down at the table, taking something white off the table and keeping it in his hand, hidden away. And then as they sit there having a few photographs taken of them, he puts the item in his pocket. Now, as I said, the allegations here were that it was basically a bag of cocaine. But upon further analysis, it does appear that it was just a white piece of tissue. Now, of course, I'm sure some people will still claim that Emmanuel Macron, Friedrich Merz and Keir Starmer were doing drugs and the tissue had some cocaine residue on it. There's apparently another alleged photo of some leftover cocaine being seen on the table, but of course the problem is that there has been a lot of doctoring since this video came out and since the pictures were released. The tissue has been made to look more like a bag, and there's also another image somewhere on the internet of supposed pieces of what looks like cocaine or some kind of white powder laying on the table. I wasn't there, so I don't know, but my guess would be they were not doing cocaine. It would be a very strange thing to do, knowing that the press are just about to come into the room. So I do think this has been purposely misinterpreted. However, there is something else I wanted to bring to your attention. On first look, it would seem as though, quite innocently, President Macron is simply taking a tissue off the table before the photo is going to be taken. He sees the tissue, he thinks to himself, well, that's a bit embarrassing to have a tissue there in the photograph, so he grabs the tissue, hides it away, and then later on puts it into his pocket. Now, the problem I have with this is that for some reason he does this in a very discreet manner. He could have simply taken the tissue off the table and put it in his pocket, but instead he decides to very subtly move his hand out, grab the tissue, take it off the table, then after a few seconds puts it in his pocket as if no one was to notice. I believe he knows full well that this is going to be noticed. The cameras are on, they're filming. They'd have seen him take the tissue and then they'd have seen him put it in his pocket. This would have all been registered. And in fact, I believe that Macron did this knowing that conspiracy theories would then come out, wondering about what the item was that he took off the table, suggesting that it could be drugs. As you may well know, there have been some allegation that President Macron's wife, Brigitte Macron, was born male. Now, the mainstream media have, of course, tried to rubbish these allegations. They have claimed in numerous articles that the allegations have been debunked, although I'll be quite honest with you, in the articles I've read, I've never seen any actual proof of the debunking. I've never seen them taking each point and showing how it was debunked. They've just said it's been debunked. But despite the media desperately trying to tell people that this isn't true, there are a couple of figures who won't be silenced on this issue. Now, one of those is investigative journalist Xavier Poussard, who's written a book titled Becoming Brigitte. And the other, with probably a lot more reach, is Catholic YouTuber Candace Owens, who did an entire 5 or 6 part series with the same title, and in fact in the first episode she invited the journalist on to have a chat with him. Now, Candace Owens has a big following. She has over 4.2 million subscribers to her YouTube channel, and most of her videos get millions of views, including the videos she did about Brigitte Macron. Now look, I'll level with you. I have not read the book and I haven't seen the series. A member of my family, however, has watched the series. Hand on heart, she isn't anywhere close to being a conspiracy theorist, and she still told me after seeing that series that she was convinced Brigitte Macron wasn't born female. Apparently there's a lot of very strong evidence. There seems to be an apparent lack of photographs of Brigitte Macron when she was younger. There seems to be a photograph of Brigitte Macron as a boy when she was younger, that of course the media have once again tried to debunk, saying it wasn't her, it was her brother, and of course her brother would look like her because they're siblings. There's supposedly an unusual factor, whereas Brigitte's parents gave a lot of money to various transgender causes and research. That's rather a strange thing to do if nobody in your family suffers or has suffered from gender dysphoria. And there are also some other very seedy and dark things revealed in the series, including incest. Once again, I haven't seen it, so I can't judge the sources, but as I've told you, somebody in my family has. I trust them, and they say the sources are very credible and the research is very good. So if it was the case that it is indeed true Brigitte Macron was born male and then became a transgender female, and with Emmanuel Macron and his alleged wife, knowing that a lot of people have now seen a series that repeats this claim, wouldn't they want to do something to discredit those pushing this idea? And here's a perfect way to do it. You don't even have to mention Candace Owens or Xavier Poussard. All you have to do is create a situation where it looks like maybe you're doing something but you're not actually doing it. Have a bunch of people then claim that's what you're doing, and then easily show how that wasn't true. Wouldn't this be the perfect scenario? There's something white lying in front of Emmanuel Macron. He grabs it, takes it off the table and hides it underneath the table. Then he puts it in his pocket. It turns out it's just an innocent tissue. But he knows that a bunch of people are going to make all kinds of claims, and there are going to be all kinds of conspiracy theories claiming that it was something else. And then all they have to do is show a screenshot that it was a tissue, and then he can say, you see, these people are crazy. Look at all the nutty stories they make up. It's just nutty story after nutty story. And then maybe the public will think, gosh, yes, they've been making up all kinds of lies about Emmanuel Macron. And therefore they've probably also been making up all kinds of lies about Brigitte Macron. It's a very simple way to discredit any allegations of Brigitte Macron having been born a male without actually even having to mention any names of people who have said this. That's the theory. It may not be true. It may just be the case that there was a tissue laying on the table. Emmanuel Macron thought that was a bit embarrassing and just took it off the table. That could just be the case. But it's certainly something to think about. These people in power are capable of a lot, and any opportunity they have to plant seeds of doubt, to do a little mini psychological operation, get people thinking one thing instead of another, I'm sure they'll take it. As for Candace Owens herself, I've done a video on her before, and from what I could see in the comments section, my audience has varying opinions. Some like her, some don't like some of the things she says, some don't like the fact that, for example, she seems to have taken the side of the Tate brothers, who they believe are rather reprehensible. I personally have gotten to like her more and more, and as I've browsed her channel, I've realized that if you take away the celebrity videos, there's actually a lot of really good, well-researched content on there. I must admit, I do like this Christian Candace Owens, this Catholic wife, this fighting mother who just wants to get to the truth, and as with the Brigitte Macron story, is willing to put her reputation at stake for something she absolutely believes to be true. She believed from what she'd found in her research that this was the case, and she was going to tell people, even if it meant she was being called a far-right conspiracy theorist by the mainstream media. So good on her for not being afraid. Good on her for not letting all kinds of labels frighten her away. She's previously been called such things as a self-hating black person or an anti-Semite. It doesn't deter her, and that's what I really like about her. So folks, do let me know what you think of that theory. Is it something you believe is plausible, or do you think it was just completely innocent? Thank you very much for watching the video. Have a blessed day.